Hi everyone. So this morning I wanted to do a quick story time on my days growing up. So I did a video recently regarding our journey to home ownership and what that looked like for my husband and I. And I've done videos here with my mom about the struggles she faced in going to university and becoming a university graduate. So this morning I thought I'd share my story about how I grew up and just basically how I got to where I am today or what made me me. So I was told, so I can't go back very far because I don't remember everything, but I was told that I was born in this community called Ragsville that's in Guysville, St. Catherine, and that house was rented. And shortly after, my mom had to move, and what she told me is that they had to keep on moving because it's like, people didn't really want to rent to her with the kids and so on, and each time she had another child it's like they would have a problem. So she ended up having to move a lot. So the house that I first know, or when I really knew myself, that house was also a rent house, right? So, and that was in Guysville, but that was like Main Street Guysville. So what I recall is my basic school days, and my basic school was with my mom because she had a little basic school at the church that we used to attend. So that is the school that I started out. That was the basic school I went to, so my mom taught me until I went to primary school. So as I said, we were still living in a rented house. I started primary school at age 4. I'm born in October. So that October, I started the September, and the October I would have become 5. So we were always bright kids. We did our schoolwork, and mom did a good job to ensure that we learned what we needed to learn and do what we needed to do. So the first time I was going out to school outside of my mom was at age 4 when I started primary school, and I went to the Mount Weaver Primary School. Because I was so young, the first year they didn't place me because they said, they couldn't, really and truly I was not to be on record as being there. So come grade 2 now, they wanted me to stay in grade 1 because I was just really becoming of the age to go into grade 1. So they wanted me to stay in grade 1, but I moved on to grade 2. I just went back to grade 2, and I think the same thing happened with my younger sister Dava. She started at 4, and I think they also wanted to keep her back, and she did the same thing as well. Or I don't even remember which of us, but I think I was placed back in grade 1 and I went back to grade 2 because I was saying that is where my friends were, and I already covered the material for grade 1. So I didn't want to stay in grade 1. So they didn't place me that year. But then no, grade 2 to 3, I remember that in grade 2, I came 7th. In grade 3, I came 7th. In grade 4 is where our story really began, and I would have the most memories of. When I was in grade 4, when I was starting grade 4, my mom was starting college. She started the Micro Teachers College. So I was going into grade 4, mom was going off to college, and Dava was going into grade 2. My older sister Kay was going into grade 6. So it was grade 6, grade 4, and grade 2 because we're 2 years apart roughly. Shortly after mom started college, we got evicted, and so they took out everything. Well, before I even reached the eviction story, I remember one day we were home. Remember I told you we were in a rented house, and these men came by the house. So we had these there was this family that we rented from, and I remember that, that is how I learned the word enemy, because they were considered to be our enemy or an enemy of the family. I remember that they had a shop and we were not allowed to go to their shop. And when we saw them, yes, we were to say good morning, but they were always kind of mean to us. I remember when we used to catch the little crickets, or we call them negayam bug. I posted a video of one the other day on my TikTok, and a lot of persons had a lot of different names for them, so I don't know what you call them. But I remember we used to go next door to where we lived to catch the bugs, and they said that that was their land. And it was like a farm, empty land, farming land, but empty, nothing was happening on it. And I remember them running us off the land. The woman, the lady, she ran us away and said we must leave our crickets. We must leave her crickets. But anyways, that is how I became familiar with the word enemy, because we were enemies. I remember there was a day when we were going home and somebody stopped us and told us not to walk in the lane to go to our house because somebody sprinkled obia powder. So we were kids. We didn't know what this was or what it meant, but they said we were not to walk over it. And there was a white powder that they sprinkled from the main road going down into our lane. Well, not the main road, because it was off the main road, but going into our lane. And I remember when our parents came to, we had to meet them to tell them not to go over it, and I think we walked around it. But they were trying to get us out of the house because we couldn't pay the rent, and Daddy had decided to stop paying the rent because he found out that they had actually captured the land and it was really government land, so he decided that he was not going to pay it anymore. I remember a day, a Sunday evening, that I was home and two men came to the house and they were standing, oh, there was a little concrete area they were standing on, and they were saying we need to come out of them parents' place or whatever they were to the persons, but they must say we need to come out of the place. No, my father was very strong-minded, strong-willed, so to speak, and he decided that he was not coming out because it's not for them house or government land. So I remember them coming into the house. I don't remember if Daddy was arguing with them, but they came into the house on us. And one of them had a gun, and that one, I think he was a police officer, but he drew the gun on us in the house, well, on my father. And after he did that, the other one started a tussle with my dad because my father was trying to get his cutlass, and he was trying to take away the cutlass from my dad. So both of them were fighting. And we went outside to the side of the house, and my dad was on top of him, and he like was bawling for mercy, and my father got up and came off of him, let him go, and walked off like to go pick up his cutlass, and the man just pulled out a knife and stabbed my dad in the back. And I witnessed all of that. As I said, this was like grade 4. I was in grade 4, so I was somewhere between the ages of 6 to 7, thereabout. And I remember I had to give a statement to the police. My dad was in the hospital for a while because even when my sister was graduating primary school, so you know graduation is normally around the end of June into July, I remember that my dad could not come to my sister's graduation because he was in the Spanish Town hospital at the time. And we went to visit him and so on. But he could have died. And I witnessed that. I had to give a statement to the police, and I had to be going to court as well because my dad took them to court, which I think he eventually won the case. And the men, I think the policeman, he lost his job. because my dad had reported it, and I think the other guy, he ran away or he was on the run for a while or something. um, I heard that either he got mad or he died, but I don't remember what happened to him. So that's what I remember of that situation. Eventually my dad went to court and won the case to get that same house demolished, and he ended up getting the lease for that entire piece of land. Now when they had put us out of the house, we had nowhere to go. There was a willow tree outside the house, and it was under the willow tree. Mom told this story already still, with the help of a good friend, so to speak, a family friend who gave us 2 tarpaulins. We had to make our dwelling there under the willow tree for the night, and it rained that night. So mom and dad had to just take watch while we slept, But the next day, mom went and she looked for somewhere for us to stay, and she got a little shop for us to stay. And we lived in that little shop. There was no light, no nothing. And even before, we never had electricity. That was never something we had. We had outside bathroom, outside kitchen, everything. We lived a very poor life, but we were very, very happy. We didn't know. Well, we knew we were poor, but we were happy. As children growing up, we were happy. Anyways, when we moved to this little shop now, this is where I ended up finishing grade 4. But this shop, it was like, shops are kind of public, right? So there was no bathroom, there was no toilet. It was just like the shop. So it's a car wash. They used the building in front of the building was used as a car wash. Then we had the little shop. So when they came to wash the cars, we were there. We had no privacy, nothing. When they're washing, we had to listen. That noise that the pump makes when you're washing the vehicles. We had to live through that every day. And when business places have a little toilet, but it's not well kept or anything, that is the toilet that we used to use. So it was out a little away from where the shop was. That's where we went to the bathroom. And then now when we wanted to shower, there was a little unfinished building that we would go into and take our showers. But it was that time was really rough, and as I said, it was very public, so we were really doing all of this with the entire community seeing us, so to speak. When daddy got the lease for the land now, mom went to Food for the Poor, and they said they would help us, and mom and daddy got the lease sorted out for the land, and that is how now we had somewhere to put the house. So we got a 1-room, I don't know if you know the Food for the Poor houses, but we got a little 1-room board house, and that is where we went to live, all 6 of us. So mommy, daddy, my brother, my older sister, me, and my younger sister. And we moved there around the end of grade 4. We moved into that house. We didn't have furniture or anything really, because what we had wasn't worth even keeping. We had like the spring mattress with just the wires that we used to put clothes on, lots and lots of clothes to try to give it the semblance of looking like a bed. But it was the 6 of us in the 1 room, and we ran a little curtain. We got a bunk bed from Food for the Poor, so me and my sisters, so my brother got 1, and the 3 of us as girls, we were on 1. And we lived like that for a while until my grandfather died. I didn't know him, but that's my mom's dad. And I think he left her 5,000 US. And at the time, that was a lot of money. And she used it to build on another little room out of ply at the back. And that is how we moved out of the room with mommy and daddy. But we had everything in that 1 room from before. So the table, we had a little table that we had to nail onto the wood because it didn't have any legs. So we had 2 legs on one side, then we nailed on one side, but the table was in there, everything was in there, and we still didn't have electricity. So at that point, we didn't have a fridge, we didn't have a TV, nothing like that. We just never have any electricity. It was not until I got into grade 7, it's when I started high school, that we got electricity for the first time. I started high school at 10, and that's when we got electricity for the first time. So that's basically the early years, that in a nutshell, that's the major details of the early years. When I got to primary school now, to high school now I meant, I went to high school when I was 10, and I remember I was short and fat. I was they used to call me Pikachu because mom used to comb my hair with like the two bubble, like two, comb my hair down like this in two, and I had the two little plaits here, and they used to call me Pikachu. But anyways, um, I did well. I did well at well, I didn't tell you that I actually graduated the top of my class leaving primary school. I remember getting an award. I remember my principal at the time was Miss Headlam, Maxine Headlam. I think she's with the ministry now. Not sure if she's still with the Ministry of Education. But she was a wonderful principal. I'm a grade 6 teacher, was Mr. Johnson. He used to teach at Guys Hill High School. But they used to take me out. I was enough from a little bit. And they met me enough because I used to participate in everything. I was in spelling bee, I was in math club, I used to represent the school for netball. I went to JCDC festivals, music festivals, speech festival, everything. So I was in everything. I was like water. And I remember this time that my principal made me do a essay. She made me enter essay competition, and I came first. And it was a Mother's Day competition, and I wrote a letter talking about my mom and how even though she was away in college, how she came home every weekend and cook our meals and comb our hair and clean our shoes and whatever. And we won a dinner at Courtly. Courtly's in Kingston. We lived in Guysville, and we dressed up in our Sunday best and we take bus and go to Courtly Hotel to have dinner. I didn't enjoy the dinner at that time. I think I ordered some beef kind of food, but it wasn't what I thought it would have been. But I remember we traveled into Kingston for the dinner and traveled back. But that was a day. So we're now in high school, right? I'm catching up at the story. So we're now in high school. In high school, I had already developed a personality of, I would say, being like a mother, being like a leader, because that came out throughout all the things that I was doing at primary school. So even though we were poor, I never once felt as though I couldn't achieve whatever I set my mind to achieve. And so my years of high school I have very fond memories of my high school. I went to Charlemont High School, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I had great teachers. I had good friends. It made me who I am. But I was never scared. I was in everything. I participated a lot. So I remember by the time I got to grade 9, the summer of grade 9, I decided that I wanted to lose weight. And so I started to starve myself. I'm telling you, I would go like 2-3 days without eating just to lose the weight. And then I started growing. I had a little growth spurt as well. So I got taller, and now I was slim. So by the time I was going into grade 10, I basically looked how I wanted to look, but I was still trying to lose weight and so on. In fifth form, I was president of 4-H. I was in cheerleading. I was on the school choir. I can't even list out everything I was doing, but I know that it was a lot. And then now I ended up dating this guy. Was it the end of fifth form? Yes, I was in fifth form. He was in lower 6. And he used to do Schools Challenge quiz, so he invited me to become a part of the Schools Challenge quiz team. So I started that in lower 6. So we were on the quiz team together. School challenge quiz was great. I learned a lot. I had a love for trivia, always had a love for knowledge. We did well. My first year on the team, we played Central High and we won. Then we played Wolmer's Girls and we won. Then we played Wolmer's Boys and we won. And then we went on to play Old Harbor High at the quarterfinals and we lost. My second year now, we were on fire. We were doing so well. And then my coach thought I was too, I don't know if he thought I was too outspoken, but my coach decided to take me off the team, or maybe he just underestimated the other team. I remember the day at practice, because we used to practice late hours. So there was this night at practice, like he said, I remember the question that was asked, what is the name given to the record scepter of Parliament? And the answer was Hansard, and I didn't know it at the time, or I didn't remember it at the time. And he paused the match, because we used to play like the recorded matches, and he paused the match and he said, you don't think we're in a trouble, like, because this was the day before the match. And I said, you don't think we're in a trouble when people can't answer question like this? And I said, no. And apparently he didn't like that answer. So he cursed and go on one way for a while. And then the next day was sports day. And I had given up going to sports day because remember I told you I was my house captain and I was supposed to be in cheerleading. I gave up that in order to go to the match at TVJ because I was on the team. And he did not let me play. He just decided not to let me play as punishment. And so they lost the match. And I was traumatized. When I tell you traumatized, I'm not going to say I've never forgiven him, but I've never forgotten that. That thing traumatized me because I invested so much in Schools Challenge quiz. And the coach took me off the team because I didn't answer. But because I felt confident, I knew that we could win that team, or I thought we would be able to win that team. I knew if I played, we would win that team because I had to sit in the match, sit in TVJ studio and watch my team lose and sit down knowing the answers. And he replaced me with a younger student that was in grade 9 at the time. And I sat down and watched my team lose. So that was really hard for me. That is one of my lowest moments in high school. Otherwise though, it was good. In 5th form, I entered a pageant, Miss Charlemont High, and I came 3rd. And my music teacher at the time, Mr. Powell, Nigel Powell, he said, no man, enter again. I think you had a real shot, I think you could have won and I think you will win if you enter again. And so I entered again in lower 6 and I actually won that year. So after I didn't do so well in my exams for upper 6 because of the Schools Challenge quiz situation, because as I said, that really hurt me. I remember my mom had to take me to school with her because mom was at UA at this time. Mom had to take me to UA with her the next day. I couldn't go to school because I cried so much. I was just so hurt. It was like I watched everything I worked for go down the drain. So mom brought me with her to UA that day, and I just spent the day with her because I feel like I did go mad. But anyways, I wanted to go into law school. I applied for law school, but based on my grades for upper 6, they weren't so hot, so I didn't get in. And back then it was not like now where you could choose to pay more. I guess like they have separate kind of programs and stuff. It was just they had a quota and they were picking the best of the best. So I didn't make it into law school. So my next option was to go to CARIMAC. So at the time, I don't know if they still do it, but I used CARIMAC is the Caribbean Institute of Media and Communication. So at the time, they had a test, an entrance test that you needed to do. So I did the entrance test and I was accepted, and so I went to CARIMAC. So I did 3 years living on Preston Hall while I went to Kermac. I finished there and graduated with honors. Had a good time in terms of education wise at UWI, met some wonderful people, had some good friends out of that. We still have a group to this day, a WhatsApp group that occasionally we talk in. But life was rough because, as I said, my mom was at UWI when I was in 6th form, so she had just finished UWI and she was on 2 year study leave, but she only got paid for 1 year. So for 1 year she had absolutely no money. So I had to take student loan and I basically had to fend for myself because daddy didn't have it, mommy didn't have it. So there were days when mom was teaching at Crescent in Spanish Town at the time. There were days I would travel from UWI to Spanish Town just to collect like a $500. So of course ramen was my best friend. So nowadays when I buy ramen for the kids and people keep on telling me that ramen no good for you and it's gonna do this and it's gonna do that, I don't doubt it. I know it's probably not good, but I just know that it's not like you eat it and you drop down dead tomorrow. Because I ate ramen almost every day for 3 whole years because that's all we could afford. So I would buy like 6 ramen at a time, sometimes more, whatever I could afford at the time. And I would go to classes, go back home for lunch, make a ramen and come back over, or I would try to get all my classes done, then go home and have a ramen. It was either ramen or Milo with a slice of bread. So I would buy a bread and I would make some Milo, and it was just bread and Milo. I don't mean nothing with the bread. That was first year. Second year now, I worked very hard in first year and I got a scholarship for second and third year from the Ministry of Education. I remember doing the interview and I just felt so blessed, so confident, like I was walking into what was mine. I think mom knew somebody and asked them to help me to apply for it or something. I don't remember how it went, how I knew about it, but I just remember that I applied and I was interviewed and I got it. So I got the scholarship for second and third year, so I was able to send back student loan money when it came over in second year. So I only owed 1 year of student loan when I left university. When I left university, I went to live in Negril. I lived in Negril for a year. So I left you with let's say the May, and I moved to live in Negril the July. I got a job at Point Village Resort as a sales representative. And that role ended up being where I was in charge of weddings, I was in charge of public relations, because that's what I did at Kermac, and a number of other things. And it was a nice experience, it was a nice hotel, but they were having struggles financially, and so I knew that I couldn't stay there. So I started looking for jobs elsewhere, and that's how I ended up in banking. So I started working with the bank in 2010. And I've been there since. I've moved up, from where I started. I started out as a teller, then I went into customer service, I went into lobby management, I went into sales. So it's been a long journey. It's been a very long journey. But all of this to say, I say all of this story to say, it's really not where you're coming from, but where you want to go. And if you really want to achieve, you can achieve. Life will not always be easy. Life will not always look a particular way. There are so many struggles along the way, but I choose to focus on the positives more than the negative. And there are people who will be in your life who will hate you for no reason or will choose not to love you. And you have to understand that everybody not going to love you. Some people will love you and some people will hate you. And if they did it with Jesus, why you any different? Why you expect everybody to love you? So I've kind of just adopted this mentality or this approach where I am just trying to be the best version of myself regardless of whatever is happening around me, regardless of what other people want to say, regardless of who like me or who don't like me. That is not my concern. A lot of people also look at where you are in life now, and because they don't know where you're coming from, or what you have been through, because they see the results but they don't see when you were going through what you were going through. So they assume now that you were always well off, or you always had things, and they don't know the struggles that you go through to get to where you get to. But I say this to say, lift up your head, do what you can do at the level that you are at, push, never stop pushing. You can achieve whatever it is that you set your mind to achieving, because those days studying with buckle lamp or my home sweet home lamp or whatever, I never saw my future. I didn't know what I would become or what I would be doing with life, but I just knew that I wanted to do well, and so that's what I went for. And my mom always told me that my mom and my dad always thought that I would become a bank manager, and I would say I have relieved as a manager. I'm not a manager. I've relieved as manager a couple of times, and it's like they spoke it into being, because I never dreamt of going into banking. I always wanted to do law, and sometimes I feel like I would still do it, but with 3 kids now, it's not so easy to think of anything like that. Plus, I feel like I've done my due diligence. I've done my due in terms of schooling. So after UA, I went on to do a master's. I did my master's online with Walden. So I feel like I've done enough studying for now. I mean, I'm constantly learning, but I don't feel like I want to go back to school. But that's it, guys. That's my story. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you made it this far in the video. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I hope this encouraged you in some way, that you can fight the odds, you can beat the odds, and you can be or do anything with the help of God. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Bye.